Welcome to the Riders Lounge. Today I'm with every snowboarder's favorite snowboarder, Garrett Warnick.
Too nice, Shane. That's too nice.
It's the truth.
Thank you. Excited to be here today.
It's the truth. All right, Garrett, I'm stoked. We finally put this together. If you guys didn't know, Garrett's actually worked up in the shop with us last year. We became really good pals, but I've always been a fan of his riding. All of us have. Like I say, every snowboarder's favorite snowboarder. It is the truth, man. You
Thanks,
crush
Shane.
it. No, you crush it, for
Really
sure.
appreciate it. Stoked to be here today, and Tribute's got a special place in Nelson, and I'm excited to be a part of the community here. And you guys have opened your doors for me, and it's been great. So I'm stoked we could link up and make this happen today.
Yeah, buddy, for sure. So what I wanted to start with, if you guys didn't know, Inyo and Worms, great adventures. These guys do what I want to do on a motorcycle, sort of AK all the way down to Argentina. You guys did the reverse. And I want to start today talking about this. We're going to have some links below, and I urge everybody to check this out. I watched all of it last year. Morrison behind the camera there was even out for one day when it was, what, minus
30? Something
you guys were like, wow, dude. Anyway, it's a must watch, but I wanted to start, Garrett, asking you, how did you and Inyo come up with this? What was the premise? Were you guys just riding Argentina and then said, okay, let's just go? Or how did this come about?
So I met Inaki. I went down to Bishop, California, and met up with the Jones crew. We did a snow camping mission with Jeremy Jones and Andrew Miller, Greg Weaver, the whole crew.
Yes,
and Inaki was there, and we both loved to split board. And there was kind of that, maybe a little bit of difference between traditional snowboard content. You get the back sevens, the back tens, versus like split boarding content, which was really geared to maybe a non-core snowboarding audience. It's just cool art, granola, all that stuff, which is great, but we just felt like, man, if there was something in between, that would be great, because I love the experience that splitboarding gives me. The time in the mountains, the decision making, it just feels like a really well-rounded experience to have in the mountains, a little bit more so than video part filming, where you really get hyper-focused on your backside seven, and that's kind of the make or break, whether you have a good day or not. So I wanted to kind of integrate those two things together, and Inaki has this background in splitboarding. I was a little bit more freestyle oriented. He kind of is more dialed on the ropes and the backcountry techniques. So when we got together in Mammoth and we went snow camping, we're just like, all right, this is a perfect fit. We kind of had similar goals with making splitboarding maybe a little bit more geared towards progressive riding, and then still trying to really focus in on having those great experiences in the mountains where you spend all day and you kind of absorb the natural beauty, and you really experience what it is that the mountains have to offer, which is for me, a lifelong of lessons and experience that I can delve into out there. So that was kind of the mindset behind it.
Very, very cool. Yeah, well, I mean, splitboarding, as Buffrey said on one of the last episodes too, you immerse yourself, but you get to slow down. And that's what's so cool. You get to take it all in and really become a part of your surroundings, and then by the time you get to summit wherever you were going, then it's go time. Then it's on, right? And that's what I really enjoyed with the series too, is you guys were really good at telling the whole story, the start to finish. The getting on the sleds, the getting gear together, the getting peanut butter all over your gear in a backpack or whatever it was, right? But just telling those stories. That's what I urge everybody to go check out. It's really, really good. So you start down south. What were the stops all your way to give us the short timeline of what people will see?
Will do. So I met Inaki in May in California, and we decided let's do a splitboard series. So the first thing we did is we started a Kickstarter. It was the middle of summer, we weren't going to get funding, so we just decided to do it on our own. We had some Jones boards up there that we signed, and we did some art and stuff. So we got a little bit of money, and I flew down to Argentina to Bariloche, where Inaki lives. And our first episode, we went out to the Fray, which is the backcountry in Sierra Cathedral. That's the local resort there in Bariloche, Inaki's local resort. And we did 2 trips out into the Fray cabin and just got to experience that. A lot of cool couloirs, a lot of amazing rock formations. And then for our second episode, we went to a different ski resort up in San Martin, about 4 hours from Bariloche, and we did this double rappel couloir, which was the first time that I had ever rappelled in my life. Super
I saw
fun.
that on Instagram stories. I think that one made the stories. I was like, what is Worm up to down there? Like, it was heavy.
Super heavy, super funny, crazy experience. Luckily, we were with some Argentinian guys that knew the line super good, and they cued us in, and that was a lot of fun. Once you get past that funnel and you're teed up, you're past the point of no return. So that's good for me because I didn't come in full committal, but once you're in the funnel, it's full committal. So
that's awesome.
And then we did one more down there where we just went into the random area that Inaki had seen and walked through the woods for a while till it turned to snow. And we split boarded. We found a little zone. We made a snow camp by ourselves. The project was brand new, so we didn't have a drone or a camera, basically. We just had our GoPros, and we made it happen. And then after that, Inaki came up to Nelson last year.
Yeah.
It's kind of a slow
That's when I
start
got
to the
to meet
year.
him,
Yeah, but we went out to a cabin over here with Garrett Warnick, another local who rides for Jones, and got a fun preseason episode done. And then after that, it went Arctic vortex temperatures around Nelson.
Minus 30, it was serious.
30, but it snowed like 6 feet, and it was the first big snow of the year, so we couldn't ignore that. And Morrison, luckily, was stoked to come out with us, and we went up and we split boarded uphill both ways a couple of days until we figured it out.
It's a great episode. That one obviously will be linked below.
And we did a snow cave, and it was freezing cold, and then from there we just kept it rolling. We really wanted to hang with Jeremy, so he gave us a day in Tahoe, and we linked that into hanging out with Nick Russell for a day, who took us out to his Eastern Sierra cabin.
So you guys came up, dipped back down again.
Yep, a little road trip. And then at the end of the year, we just sent it to Alaska. We did one trip, one episode where it's like road to Alaska, and we snowboarded along the way a little bit, and then we got up to Alaska, and we spent like 40 days in the tent on the side of the road, and split boarded from the highway. So that's all been on the internet. And then I've got a mega camp episode coming out here soon. It's 30 minutes long, and that documents our trip to the glacier in AK, where we flew in with the airplane, me, Inaki, Jason Robinson, and Carver Colbeck. So we spent 2 weeks on the glacier up there, and that'll come out here pretty soon.
Right on.
Yeah.
Mega camp.
Mega camp. Well, I haven't chosen a name yet, but mega camp is what the preview of the video is called right now.
Cool.
So we'll see where it goes.
Awesome. Well, I can't wait to see that too.
Awesome, man. Well, thanks for all the kind words.
Yeah, man. No, it was really fun to just follow that series. Like I love stuff like that because, again, like I said, there's storytelling in all of this too, as well as these guys crush it. The riding is really damn good, and you just get to immerse yourself in a trip like that, which, not everybody gets those opportunities. So it's really cool, and especially the varying landscapes through south to all the way up to Alaska was just wild to see. All the terrain you guys, especially by the time you got to AK, it was good. It was good, and there was some heavy lines done.
Alaska was good for sure. Well, that's the thing with split-boarding is there's just so much terrain that you can access, and it all depends on how much you're willing to walk and how many times you're willing to kind of make mistakes. Like we went with a day with Morrison here, and we had no idea where we were going. We had a zone kind of picked out on Google Maps.
Because you guys went to the Redfish area, hey?
Yeah.
Mark's in the back there, yeah.
Yeah,
Redfish,
so we kind of drove the sleds up there, and then we toured all day, and we never transitioned. It was uphill the whole loop we did, which that's how it goes sometimes. But we learned from those lessons. We went back the next week, and eventually we found some terrain up there that made sense, that wasn't uphill both ways. Don't ask me how that happened. Sorry, Mark. But yeah, it's just a lot of terrain that you've just never seen snowboarded before. And I mean, with snowboard videos now, you watch some of the stuff in Whistler, and it's like, oh, they're doing the form step down again, and this and that, which is great. And there's a lot of progression that can be done coming back to the same spots over and over again. But especially up here in Canada. The mountains
But
are
the
endless.
exploratory, when we get to see these new zones, it's cool to offer the the audience out there that stuff too. It's pretty
Totally,
rad.
and you got no pressure if you go into a brand new zone. It doesn't matter what's been done because nothing's been done. Versus if you go somewhere in Whistler where it's been cab 9 and back 10 and switchback 9, and you're either going to copy somebody's trick, and everybody in Whistler is going to be like, oh, good, or you got to do triple cork. So going to new spots definitely opens up the possibilities to just riding it how you want to ride it with no pressure.
Yeah. Well, speaking of split boarding, we like to talk gear on the show, and we're going to talk Worm's gear on the show. So, for starters, let's pull that guy
Let's do
over.
it, dude. This is the bread and butter right here.
So what I love, I rode a hovercraft about 10 years ago, hover split, and then I got on the Stratos. And Worm was at one of our Jones meetings last year, and I was going on about the Stratos, and he kind of, I can't remember exactly what you said to me, but you looked at me and you were like, man, you don't ride a hovercraft? I think. And it just kind of clicked. I was like, you know what? I haven't revisited that board in a while. 2.0 comes out in the solid version and in the split. And I got back on that last year, and that board's fantastic. But the way you ride this thing like a twin tip, freaking, I mean, you do land fake it, I've seen it.
Well,
But,
every now and then.
I've seen it. But yeah, it's the amount of freestyle done on a hovercraft by you, I think, is outside of where I used to think this board fit.
Well, that's definitely one thing I wanted to do with it once I got on it, because I just fell in love with the board and the way it rode. I actually am a big fan of the Stratos too, and every board kind of has their own unique flavor and perfect conditions, but I feel like the hovercraft really lends itself well to the terrain around here in the Kootenays, because you get a lot of tight, sort of extremely bumpy, rowdy, intricate terrain up here. And this board, like, one thing that's amazing in the Kootenays is you can downsize. Let's say you normally ride a 58. You can get on a 56 hovercraft. It's going to float better than your normal 58.
Yeah, this model's one where you can, because I'm usually bumping people up, but this is one where I ride a 56.
Yeah, and especially around here, you've got intricate terrain, you've got tight trees at Whitewater, and you've got super deep snow. So you want to have the float, and you want to have a really nimble, kind of easy to turn board, and I feel like that does really good in sort of the general Kootenay areas. It does well everywhere. I ride maybe a 56 for Whitewater, and then I bumped up to a 160 in Alaska where you get wide open and you really want the stability. But I love being on a nimble board here, and even having less tail, I find like sometimes you have to do a funny hop turn or something like that, and not having as much tail makes your hop turn about half as easy on this tail, because you only have to worry about getting that little bit of tail around, and just small advantages like that add up to making a huge difference, especially when you find yourself in a kind of tricky situation, and then you have all of these different features of the board working for you instead of against you. Then that's when I feel in my element. I'm like, all right, this is all going according to plan.
Absolutely,
and it's awesome.
Yeah. And with this model too, I run it fairly back seat, so short tail, so you get that elongated nose that gives you the sense of a longer board underfoot too. What angles are you riding when you're free riding?
When I'm free riding, I usually do about 17 to 19 on the front, and about 0, -3 to +3.
Yeah.
I've gone more posy. I've rode with Jeremy and Squaw, and I had the back foot all the way up +17, but I just can't do it all the time. I like to keep it around 0. That gives me a really kind of like free ride, but also aggressive stance, I feel like. So that's my perfect happy medium.
And your width, stance width, you're usually?
Around 22 inches.
Yeah, and how tall are you?
I'm 6 foot.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, that makes
so,
sense for sure.
And like Kootenays, I could be a little bit more narrow. You get those hips swinging, you kind of
Quicker.
Yeah, exactly. And then maybe up in Alaska, you could bump out just a ½ inch or something like that if you really want to feel like you're in control.
And split boarding, when you're climbing, it's nicer to have a slightly shorter board too, because we're also climbing through tight trees if it's sketchy conditions. Not having so much ski to maneuver too when you're on the way up. There's advantages there as well, right?
Totally, and Mark would be good to pick his brain, because I remember last year we were actually walking on sticks, and we had to top out on this mountain, and the move was like there was an upward tree sticking out of the ground that you had to get your foot onto. So exactly, maneuverability
Yeah,
of this
yeah.
board is something I absolutely love. And I mean, that goes for walking uphill and downhill, but just feeling like it's so whimsical and nimble in the trees that it really lends itself great to the riding around here.
And they're gorgeous. I mean, this flax that they do on the top sheet, it's a sintered 9000 base, so these things are fast as hell.
Yep.
And yeah, everything you expect from Jones. The 3D though, really, that 3D contour in the, the solid and this one, it just, that through the powder, it's almost like a boat hull. It just keeps that nose up and ripping nicely.
Yeah, it performed so well, and I mean, that's why I fell in love with the hovercraft, is once I started riding it and I would be riding away from a jump or something like that, and I would be expecting to fall, and all of a sudden you'd be riding out, and I'd still be up, and
That nose is up.
and
Yeah.
I didn't know what. Nothing had changed in my life other than this thing, and I was like, the amount of times I land things with a surprise on my face has gone up so exponentially since I switched to hovercraft that it's just become like my favorite board because yeah, it surprises me all the time.
Well, like I said, to see some, some of the spins you've thrown down on this thing have been pretty outside of what I expected to see on a hovercraft, and I love that about it. It's pretty rad.
Well, it does lend itself better to riding forward, of course.
Yes.
And I ride forward 90% of the time. So to have a board that's truly a twin tip for me doesn't make sense, especially in the Kootenays, because it's not often that I go up to the resort and I just want to ride switch all day, or go split boarding and you find yourself on this epic run. I just want to ride regular. When I go surf, I want to surf a right-hand point break.
Yeah.
So I prefer to have a board that works really, really, really well in one direction and then make it work in the other direction. And I think I've only actually landed switch. I did a back 5 on this thing one time, which I'll get you guys the clip for that for sure. But other than that, yeah, it's really tough.
You're
to
landing
land switch.
regular, yeah.
But I love 360s and I love 720s, and so
Yeah, your 720s on this are pretty badass for sure. What binding system are you using?
I'm using the Karakoram, the Nomad bindings.
Awesome.
They work super well. I love the system that Karakoram does because it's just one extra feature that really binds the board together.
Everything underfoot as well, right?
And the way that the Karakoram bindings work is they just ratchet the board together with a lot of force. And
I agree.
I personally, I have no difference being on my split board and AK on a big line or my solid. It doesn't matter. I love my split board. I have equal amount of trust in it, and I know it's going to perform just as well. So that's been awesome. I mean, even I've been on a journey sort of to do a double cork on a split board, which hasn't happened yet. I've gotten pretty close, but I build really shitty jumps because it's always an after fact. Like you go to ride a line and the conditions aren't good for lines, but you find a good pocket of snow, and instead of going home, it's like, let's put up a little wedge and try. So I've tossed a few doubles out there, and other than myself messing it up, the board performed perfectly.
That board and binding combo is, it's very legit. I've been super impressed with what Karakorum's building and how lightweight. I've done a couple setups with the Grizzlies actually on this model, and it's just feather light. Like and again, that's what you want with split boarding. You are paying attention to how much weight's on your backpack. You're paying attention to how much weight you're dragging up on your feet, because everything is human powered.
Yeah.
Everything you're getting up there is, it's up to you to get it there. So no, it's pretty rad, and I've been, again, like I say, very impressed with what Karakorum's doing. Yeah.
Totally. Well, you have a lot of gear when you go split boarding. You've
Yeah.
got your poles, you've got your skin, you've got your avalanche gear,
Yeah.
you've got your water, your sandwich, your sunscreen, everything else, maybe a first aid. So just,
Shave
reducing
weight where you can.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah.
So, the hovercraft is super light, the Karakorums are super light, so they're an awesome setup. And one other thing that I love is my first year split boarding, I was not the fastest at transitioning. And a lot of times when you go out with a group of people, there is some leeway to wait, but I hate to be the last person.
Yeah, you don't want to be that last guy. Yeah.
So just having a super easy changeover is awesome, because a lot of times, you go down, you've got a little hill, maybe you want to change over, maybe you don't, but being able to change over like this super fast and consistent just makes that process a no-brainer. Okay, I'm going to go to snowboard mode, done deal, and forget the skiing.
Yep. Awesome. Well, continuing on with gear, the other thing Worm rides is the Schraupiness outerwear. And this stuff, so you did a complete season in one jacket?
Complete season in one jacket, so totally. The Schraupiness gear has been so good, and holds up so well. So 2 years ago, I actually rode my bike from Terrace, BC to Haines, Alaska, 1,400 kilometers, and we left the end of February from Terrace, so it's middle of winter. Wore this jacket all the way up on my bike, and I mean, it looked pretty bad from all the trucks that had passed and splashed me along the way. But as far as the durability and the fact that it was still working exactly how it should, it was awesome.
Shedding water correctly, keeping you warm, blocking wind. These jackets are 30-30, so 30K waterproofing, and then 30 grams of breathability as well. So it's moving moisture off the body really well. It's a 3-layer laminate, which I love. And what I was most impressed with too is when you see the seam taping inside, these are really, really well built. And when they're taped this nicely, but when you see the shoulders and everything, that's the ergonomics of the jacket that keep it comfy. Because when we do have to split board and wear the outerwear, you don't want things binding up. You don't want it, you don't want it to feel cumbersome. And that's what really did impress me with these too.
Totally. Super lightweight feel, which like you're saying, when you're hiking, like when I go up to AK, maybe a lot of times you can ditch the jacket for when you're split boarding. But on that final pitch, you're snowshoeing up a super steep face,
Yeah, you need this on.
You've got to have the jacket on. You're just in snow. So having something that's lightweight, that doesn't hold you back at all. And the one thing I love with Jones, and they've done this with every piece of gear they put out, is every single feature that they have really makes sense. Like the goggle pockets, I totally use. The waterproof pockets, totally use. We've got different places for beacon on the bibs in the outerwear, and same with the backpacks. They have various pockets for different things: shovel, beacon, probe, all of that, and everything fits perfectly. And
little radio pocket here, which is super nice.
Super nice. Yeah, everything's been really carefully thought out on all their outerwear.
And really good contoured hood too. You can get this hood over your helmet if need be as well. So that's another gripe I have. If the hood's not big enough to get over a helmet and it's really groppling down or even raining at times, you need that. So
you gotta have it over.
Yeah, another just
style too.
Super key feature. Powder skirt. Powder skirt will clip into your pants system, so keep you dialed there.
All three, so it kind of like cinches up really well. You've got three that just hold the powder skirt in one position, so you don't have multiple positions, but the powder skirt stays where it needs to stay perfectly.
And you were using the pant that matches the jacket as well, the bib version?
Yeah, the Chopinist pant. Depending if it was condition-wise, how deep it was, sometimes I just run the pants, sometimes I run the bibs. Luckily, I'm able to have both, so.
Right
blessed for that.
Right on. What kind of backpack are you using?
I'm using the Jones 25 liter most of the times, which I get a little bit of crap
25 small. I was using the 32.
Yeah. So it's tough to get everything in there, but me and Anaki have this cool system where we share the drone. 2 controllers, 1 drone.
Smart.
So we never actually have to ride down the mountain with the drone, just the controller, first aid, all that other stuff. It barely fits, but I just love having a small backpack on, and I manage with 25 liters, so
that's good to know. Yeah, because I find that upstairs. People are wanting to pare down because you look at the 32 and you're like, whoa. The problem is you're going to fill the 32 if you have 32. So what Garrett's doing is pretty smart. If you go with a smaller pack, you are really going to be mindful of what you're bringing. And therefore, like we discussed earlier, you're shaving weight.
Yeah.
You're forcing yourself to shave weight by having that smaller bag.
Well, I'm not going to claim that I'm extra smart. I might be putting off some of the gear on other people in my group.
That's also smart. That's smart.
Hey, you've got the first aid. Hey, you've got my lunch. And this whole winter, me and Anaki shared a water bottle. We had space for 1 water bottle. So I had a liter water bottle in my backpack. Yeah. The guy doesn't drink water. He's like, somehow his uncles, which are these crazy Everest guides, taught him not to drink water. It's a sign of weakness in the mountains if you need water. So he's like 2 sips for the whole day, and anyways, we make it work.
That's awesome. No, that's really good to know. Well, when it comes to split boarding, I like to get, the philosophies out of our friends and things like that. What are kind of some of your mindsets when you approach the mountains? Avalanche awareness is always something we talk about, we want to key in, but not just in making the movie, but even if you're just going out with the homies to just go a ride, what are some, how do you approach the mountains? What are some of your routine things that you like to do?
Yeah, I think deciding obviously where you want to go. and then how you're going to mitigate the dangers of where you're headed. So, you know, figuring out the terrain that is good for that day. Here in the Kootenays, we're blessed. We have wide open tree runs, which you can go to with high avalanche conditions. We have pillows, which is really great if you're afraid to get on big open faces. And we also have big open faces. So figuring out what the snow conditions lend themselves to and doing that. And that's sort of something we talked about with like the jumping early. Like I don't often go out seeking like, I'm going to build a jump today. But if you've got big avalanche conditions and you can find a landing that you feel really comfortable with.
Perfect time to do that.
Perfect time. Yeah. So, you know, instead of doing what you want to do, figure out what the mountains want you to do and play within the ball game. I think that's huge. And then, you know, making sure everybody in the group is dialed and making sure everybody feels listened to. You know, you don't want somebody not being able to speak their mind if they feel like they're going into somewhere that's dangerous. And just because you have more experience than somebody else doesn't mean that they don't have an opinion. So just making sure everybody in the group feels like they're able to contribute to the plan and the program, and that often just being able to contribute makes somebody feel a little bit better about the scenario.
Group dynamics, yeah, it's
totally.
so key out there for sure.
And yeah, enjoying the uphill, which I think is a double-edged sword. A lot of the times I'm freaking out and frothing, but we briefly touched on it before, just the experience
to slow
of the
down,
mountains.
take it in, right? Yeah.
So that's huge, and I think that lends itself to making it a really well-rounded situation, because the places that you're able to go on a split board are some of the most beautiful in the world. Yeah. And chances are there's no other way to get there than on a split board. So just feeling that gratitude for what you're doing and where you're doing it will take you a long ways in the mountains.
Yeah, man. Well, I really do see you as one of the evolutionary split boarders in our scene right now. You're bringing a freestyle aspect to split boarding that's just wicked. Awesome. And I really appreciate it. I love watching you ride. Yeah, man, thanks so much for coming on.
Of course. And I mean, the other thing is, it's kind of a budget-friendly way to go out there. I don't have the money to pay for a helicopter. If it's 10 grand, if it's 20 grand, you hear a lot of numbers.
Even seasons passes now, right? This, or a snowmobile. This still beats a snowmobile.
It totally does. And I mean, there's a lot of cool cat skiing operations around here. There's heli operations. The fact of the matter is, you can get to every single one of those places with this piece of equipment, whether it takes you a day, a week, a month. I don't know, but you can get there with this. So that opens up the possibilities. It's like nothing is untouched.
Very well said. Very well said. And with that, I'd like to thank our sponsors, of course, Cole Headwear, BALDFACE Lodge, and Tribute Boardshop, of course. We're going to try to drag Worm on a little more often. He's hopefully kicking around, so Morrison, I'm sure we'll get out more filming with them. And yeah, again, you're going to see... We'll get Garrett back on, and we really appreciate you guys hanging out with us all the time. Please subscribe. I hate asking, but it's just one of those things that helps both our channels. Please subscribe to Inyo and Worm's Adventure. It is freaking fantastic. I want to make sure everybody hits that up too.
Sweet, thank you.
We try to help each other all the time. We're trying to do good things for snowboarding.
Yeah, we all live in the same town. We all want the same thing, and you know, it's just a click of a button.
Exactly, man. So thanks again, you guys, and we'll see you on the next one.
Cheers.